Welcome. 1, 2. Hey, 1, 2. Okay, this is mad confusing. I'm listening to music at the same time in my headphones. This is live recording number I. And if you haven't figured it out by now, which again, who am I talking to? I don't know. If you're here live, welcome. You're a real one. You are an algorithmic anomaly because I know a lot about how these algorithms work, and there's exactly like 0% of what you're supposed to do to get the algorithm to work included in the way I do these live recording joints, which is why, again, and I said this in the last one, but maybe I'll just say it every time at the top, so, because I think statistically it's most likely anyone who does join live at the beginning. I'm taking advantage of the fact that the various platforms that allow you to stream to them effectively have infinite storage space, and therefore I'm just kind of I'm live recording this so that it can be saved without having to like put it on my hard drive. Later, I'm going to make an AI system that can go back through all these and edit out all the useful stuff, which is a small percentage. I think probably 20-30% at best, and then put them together into episodes, courses, whatever, what have you. Oh, I can't get it. Oh no. There we go. All right. You know, I'm just going to talk for a while because, like I said, if you're someone that just wants to hear the music, you're just going to click this button that says music only, and the AI will just skip over all this shit I'm about to say, and you won't have to deal with it. And the first one I want to make is the swear one, so all the swearing, that'll be bleeped out by default. So apologies if it's offending anyone now, but it's fourth dimensionally been bleeped. We're going to do it. Yeah. All right, for anyone in logic, this is the realest lesson. It doesn't really matter because all of these Apple Silicon machines are so powerful, but this option right here, fuck automatic. Don't do that. Give it full power. Like, why wouldn't you? And frankly, I noticed a huge difference. Even on this is a Mac M2 Ultra Max Studio. Huge difference by letting it have all the cores. And it's not using them. It's hardly using anything. I mean, it's like, yeah, we're not using that much CPU here. I don't know what that is. That's probably the stream or something. Yeah, we're really not using a lot of CPUs. And even when I'm playing a lot of stuff, unless you got like 1,000 tracks. If you got 1,000 tracks, bounce in place. You know what? Maybe that's what we'll talk about. Since my whole workflow is informed by having done this for so long, that I do everything like so efficient that I don't have to deal with a lot of these logistical things, but also the style of music that I've been making for the past year and a half is relatively minimal. I think of it as combo orchestration, where like a combo is like a jazz band. So like I went to a jazz camp once. We had a little combo. It was like 5-10 people or something, and a few people who played each instrument. But when we were playing, our combo was 5, 6, 7 or something. So a small ensemble. And that's to say that in my productions, I'll usually only have 3 tracks for the drummer, snare, hat, kick. That's it. Like none of the rest of the kit. Bass and the kick they're similar. And then sometimes only one lead, and that's a trio. That is what that combo is a trio. So the lead might be a string, a string, what do you call it? Chamber? I mean, it's also a combo. Like, it might be multiple instruments. It might be one of these Hans Zimmer patches where it's actually like 80 people playing that one instrument. But in terms of the, let me just make sure my audio is actually in this. 1, 2, hey. Okay. In terms of the number of tracks, I'm telling you, on average, it's a combo. It's a trio, so we have drummer, bass, key, piano, or whatever that instrument is, guitar, metaphorically speaking. The actual instrument will be some crazy patch, and that's what allows it to work, is it's a combination of the most, like, just dynamic single patches paired with jazz theory, really getting into the harmony, really maximizing the breadth of each instrument through rhythmic theory, harmonic theory, melodic theory, all these things. But then letting that unlock the ability to make an incredibly minimal electronic production in the way that a combo would play in real life. So that's very difficult to do, just because you have to understand what a combo would do in real life. So you have to have, like, gotten your past the class of, like, real life music, and then learn all the computer stuff and get that stuff down pretty good, because you got to understand how to work these patches to get them to feel like they're in that same space and they're working together in the way that a combo does. And then to be able to play the computer the way that you play in a combo, that's the most difficult part. That's very hard. So I'm not at all saying anyone should do that. I'm just trying to preface what I do now against what I've learned, because I did learn how to do basically anything, and I still can. I'm just out of practice, because at this moment where I'm doing all this AI stuff, like, the only thing I have time to do musically is my themes for my virtual characters, and that's, like, real far out trippy stuff. But let's see what I remember. I guess this is a way to see what I remember. So this all started. You know what? This is what this AI thing is going to do. I'd be, like, having talking about three things at the same time, and I'll always connect them back together. It might just take 10 minutes, and the context makes no sense. So the AI is going to have a thing on the side that has these, like, it's like, okay, this is the plot line from where he started. Now we've added these 10 subplots. That's just how my brain works. But the original plot line was having a lot of tracks, and why it's good to have your processing threads maxed out. If you had 1,000 tracks, the M2 Ultra can only do 208.93. Don't ask why. No, literally, what I do for fun is watch videos about the Macs. My favorite channel is Max Tech. I just watch them on loop. I've watched each one relating to the computers I have, and the new ones, the M4 series at this moment, is, man, these videos are good. They're exciting, bro. I love the dudes at Max Tech. I'm not trolling them at all, but I mean, talking about, like, running benchmarks, it's not the most exciting thing ever, but I love it. I'm excited by it. That's why I know for a fact that in that Logic test, which is kind of a wild test and doesn't really reflect what you would actually do in Logic, the M2 Ultra could do 293 tracks, I believe. It might have been 320 or something. It's not 1,000. No computer can do 1,000 yet. I don't know why you would have 1,000 tracks. Think about that. That's 1,000 instruments. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, if you did, or if you have, like, an M4 Mac Mini, because that's a great machine that everyone should pick up if you're just getting started. That thing can run Logic better than my old $3,000 Intel MacBook Pro I had. I guarantee it, because I know that the performance on the base M4 is going to be much, much better than the M1, and I ran this full stack on the M1, and I had 16 gigabytes of RAM, but it was much less efficient. It was much less efficient. I guess the swap was about the same speed, but the processor is so much slower, and it was okay. I was able to run some of the most complicated pieces I've ever written on that just fine. Excuse me. Man, just thinking about that, pieces I've ever written, I really can't remember what I made prior to this last batch. I guess they're probably all in... Dude, I have no idea where they are. The problem is every one of them is the same setup. It's the same, my template. And I have no clue where Yeah, what the heck? Whatever. We'll talk about that after. But an M4 Mac Mini, which you can get for $500 odd right now, is the greatest PC, personal computer, ever made. Here's why. It's incredibly cheap, and it is capable of doing anything you could possibly need to do well. Is it as good as my M2 Ultra at rendering 360 video? No. Why are you trying to render? If you're trying to render 360 video, you probably have been doing computer stuff for a while. I'm talking about me when I got my first MacBook to run Logic on that really didn't work. Like just running the most basic plugins with no effects, and Logic would like crash the system and the battery life was terrible. If I had an M4 Mac Mini, not an M4 Pro, just straight M4, dude, I could have been producing like 1,000 times faster than I was. It can also video edit. When I got into video editing, I got an M1 Max. That was my machine, and it ran everything. And I was doing this for work, and I had to work fast. I was rendering out of Resolve all the time. The M4 Mac Mini can probably hang with that, relatively. The encoders are the same. It's just about RAM and graphics cores, which if you're just running in 4K, doing HEVC, which, dude, back when I started getting into video, and coding into HEVC was kind of sketch. Like, people were still doing H.264. Never do H.264. Oh my God. H.264, thank you for what you did for video. But, like, don't, it's terrible. It's so bad. The quality is so much worse on H.264, and it's much bigger. The files are much bigger than the HEVC. And I did this. At one point, I've made a really good ProRes encode setting. I mean, ProRes is always easy to encode to out of Resolve. But then I built my own H.265 HEVC encoder, and I would A/B them. And out of Resolve, because I tuned it to where I was pushing the HEVC as much as I could. They looked basically the same. The only place you could tell the difference was like the edges of the frame, where the long GOP encoding of the HEVC was not quite able to render the part of the screen that you're not even looking at all as deeply, because it's like 1/100th the file size. I mean, the efficiency relative to the quality of HEVC is insane. So I don't know why you would encode anything else. On an M4 Mac Mini, you can encode out of Final Cut, and I don't see why you would be getting, I guess unless you're starting in like Resolve, I don't know why you'd have Resolve and be looking at an M4 Mac Mini as your first machine. Like, Resolve is a software you get second. It's kind of intense. Regardless, though, I'm sure it runs great. And I mean literally better than like any of the old Intel ones. Probably close to what the M1 Max could do. Not in terms of render speed or like pushing it hard, but just basic like color grading in Resolve, I'm sure is fine on that thing. And especially editing in Final Cut, I'm sure is great. And like, so I'm saying, if you're starting a YouTube channel, if you're starting a podcast, you want to start recording into Logic, you're getting into music production, dude, even if you're getting into Unreal Engine, like game engine work, because that machine has ray tracing, I'm sure that it runs that relatively well. I wouldn't expect to be able to make a 2K map in Unreal on an M4 Mac Mini easily, but you probably totally can. That's how powerful this machine is. Most all those things were like kind of impossible on the Intel ones. It's just exponentially more capable. But, again, this is the plot thread coming back. Yes, on my M2 Ultra, I can run hundreds of tracks. Probably well. To be fair, though, I've got so much crap open, and I'm using so much RAM. Like, I don't even know what's happening. Like, no, it would not enjoy running hundreds of tracks. So, like, what I'm going to say about this is about bandwidth management, processor management, etiquette, because I do still remember these things, because I had to grind through the Intel days where your logic would crash unless you did all of these no matter what. But now, even with an M4 Mac Mini, which is so cheap, it's insane. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, your iPhone, if you have an iPhone Pro, I got Pro Max, that shit is literally twice as expensive as the M4 Mac Mini. And the M4 Mac Mini is a computer that can do so much more than what the phone can do. Enough said. And if you have an iPad, you can use your iPad as the screen. Literally don't even need a monitor. Yeah, the value is insane. They go in hard AF on that, and I'm excited because it's a very capable AI machine, and that's really where things will get fun. But that's besides the point. M4 Mac Mini is great. In either event, it's better not to push your computer to where it's about to crash. That's just a good rule of thumb. So this stuff I'm going to teach right now, the person I'm envisioning is someone getting into production in Logic in whatever amount of time it takes me to create this AI system that has then created a curated video that you're now watching, which I wonder what the AI is going to think about this part. It'd be like, fourth dimensional shit. Like, whatever. And of course it will have bleeped out that bad word. But you get in your first computer. It's not an M4. I mean, at whatever point that is, you could probably get an M4 for like $200. Probably still a great deal. But whatever Apple Silicon we're on, you're getting into Logic for the first time. You can get the cheapest computer you can find of Apple Silicon. I would say M4 and after. And what I'm going to tell you will allow you to do basically any amount of complexity on it. Well, because if you manage your processing and your CPU, you can stack 10,000 tracks. You'll just run out of, like, I don't even know what, I mean, I don't know how that's possible to have that many sounds going at the same time, but whatever issue you run into, like memory bandwidth or something weird, you're not going to run into any processing issues if you follow this. So let's go. So this little guy here, this button, freezes your track. If you have track as MIDI and you freeze it, honestly, I don't really remember what exactly it's doing technically, but it like disables the processing on the effects. So it exponentially reduces the load on the machine, because you can't like interact with it. You can't play it anymore. I mean, you can just click the button and then you can play it again. But it really reduces the processing. That's a really easy way. And this button may not be shown by default. You just go select your components, grab it. So that's a really easy way to do it. What I recommend, though, is if you want to be really careful, and because this also gets you into a good habit, where, you know, I'll just play something for the sake of what output. All right, check this out. Option. We're going to press the Option key. B. I'm sorry, I always do that wrong. I've known this shortcut for so long that I have forgotten what it is. Control B. Bounces in place. And here's why this is what I would have. This is what I would do. For one thing, if you have buses, it'll just preserve the bus. Buses don't take up processing. That's the only way that I'm able to have 400 tracks in here. Is that, or 369, sorry. Wow, that's okay. because I've only got, whenever I'm doing my crazy, like whatever the bust stuff I have, which is like my intense reverbs, the stuff that will actually make the machine kind of get wild, and a lot of my processing, like all of my bus for bass and kick, which is like compression, all this stuff, it's just one bus. So I can have 1,000 bass tracks and they're all routed through the same bus. So it means the total amount of plugins being used is not that many, unless they're per track. But in terms of the intense ones, like a compressor, multipressor, you know, all that stuff that you really don't want to have 1,000 of them going, even if you have a lot of tracks, I have those assigned to buses and then I bus things. Bussing's easy. You can watch a video about it. It's basically just plugging a cable in from multiple things into one effect. But in the case of Logic, it actually they don't fight with each other too much. I don't know how. Like, that doesn't make logical sense. I think it's because you can just mix the amount. So, well, I mean, that's how hardware busing works. I just never did that because came into the game at the exact moment where that was like starting to become cost illogical to like invest in all this hardware. But I learned from cats who were they were hardware bus peoples. But anyway, so that's to say that you still get your live effects from your plugin. So if you want to just have a raw audio file and just make your processing go from 100 to like 2% instantly, you know, like this is just an audio file. This is using as much data as playing a song in music is. Like, this is nothing compared to running a really complex patch with a bunch of like crazy stuff in it that uses a bunch of RAM. This is completely goes away. You can go in here, purge your RAM, and run it. And if you wanted to be really smart about it, the one downside to this is your effects are now baked in, so you can't tweak the effects on the thing anymore. You could easily just delete this and go make another one. And if you'd follow this habit, whenever you get past, say, 10 tracks, follow the habit of creating bips, bouncing in place, you'll be fine. You'll always be fine. But the right way to do it, I don't do this because I like the challenge and because I didn't realize it when I first started that this was the better way to do it. But just put all of your effects on buses, and that way you'll still have them. And just in terms of approach to production at large, and I would say storytelling through music, you don't use like 80 different effects, you know? Keep it in the same world. Like, if you had a combo, that philosophy applies to the acoustics as well. They're probably going to be in the same space or a similar space, so having the same reverb on a few tracks and stuff like that, and really focusing your attention in terms of mixing and mastering on dynamics, getting your compression, getting like EQ is the main thing I do. That's 95% of what I'm doing to get my stuff to be where I want it to be. And you know, that's very simple stuff, and so I can do an infinite amount of it. It's not going to incur any processing cost. That's why I'm saying don't have like 100 different reverbs. That doesn't make any sense. So I might have to bounce. But speaking of bouncing, bounce it in place. And then the last trick, and this is really good, this button here, you can show it by customizing this low latency mode. It will disable like complicated reverb patches, but I don't think it will disable any built-in Logic effects. So again, if this is your first machine, you're not going to have a $20,000 library of samples, which is fine. I used the free stuff for like so long, and it really didn't make a difference. I just got this because I got into scoring, and like I wanted to have the craziest stuff. So if you're not in scoring, don't worry about it at all. Especially the built-in stuff in Logic is incredible now. But if you're using that and you turn this on, it's not going to disable any of your effects, and it makes the machine run like 80 times faster. And it ensures that the processing is minimal because it's disabling anything that's really going crazy. Like when you master it, it'll disable those plugins, so you just turn it off. And if you do this and you do this, and you'll see if it's disabled plugins, you'll see. You can literally run 10,000 tracks on a base M4 Mac Mini. Fine. Well. And if you put on low latency mode, you'll be able to play with any patch so fast, it is insane. I mean, like, so fast. And that from the bottom up, I didn't learn those things for a long time, so I was beating my computer up, and it was making it hard for me to play and interact with it. So if you see this, excellent. That, I hope, will help your production. Peace out.